Is everybody ready? All right. I call to order a meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on January 20th, 2026 at 6:01. Start first with the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there someone who'd like to lead us in the pledge? Yes.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no local liquor control board business tonight. We have no local cannabis control board business. Order of agenda. Are there any changes to the order of agenda? Okay, so then we will start with public comment. Remember, you have 3 minutes, and if you have a comment that addresses an agenda item later on, could you please wait until that time, at which time you would have 2 minutes. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Simon from Wilder. I am going to speak on something you're talking about later, but I have to leave, and it's going to be very brief. Just to ask you, I've been to the select board 2 different years in a row, bringing you signatures of people asking you to pass the Gaza resolution. And you folks said, we'd like to know how the town people feel. So now you'll have that opportunity. You'll be getting a petition that probably won't have all the signatures that's needed to get it on the ballot on its own. But we're hoping that you will consider this resolution, and there'll be other speakers after me to give you more details. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, I couldn't see the microphone, so at first I thought there wasn't one, but that's fine. Thank you, Laura. Kathy?
Hi, Kathy Melisick, Wilder, Vermont. I also have to leave early because there's a chamber thing scheduled for tonight at the same time as this. It's a multi-chamber thing. I have to go for work. I just wanted to say something on the record about and I will call it myself, the disgusting Valley News editorial on January 9th called Hartford Board Unresponsive to Resident Sentiment. I thought it was incredibly mean-spirited, selective in its facts, and I'm not sure who did something to whose oatmeal that morning. The idea that town officials owe it to the public to explain themselves, that's what the meetings are for, that's what the minutes are for, that's what the listserv is for. Things like, having to feed a meter in the freezing cold. We know that, we live here. But I've been to the transfer station. That's where I take my recycling, and even the information about the accident that happened there, which was really, truly tragic, was not accurately reflected in this editorial. And finally, with respect to their comments about Mr. Hoyt, as far as I know, Mr. Hoyt has not gone against our town's charter with regard to his attendance. So this is a moot point on here, as far as I'm concerned. So we often hear from neighboring towns that we're all in this together, regardless of whether that's accurately reflected in actions. This was not a we're all in this together kind of statement. And I found it pretty appalling. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that here. Thank you.
Kathy.
Marie Elvin, Hartford Avenue. I just wanted to give an update. I lost my printout about 20 minutes ago, so I'm a little upset about that, but I'll be quick. Most of the select board is aware of this. I just want the general public to be aware of it. There was a break-in at St. Paul's Church last week, and there was computers and a TV screen stolen. The Twin Pine residents, I've had a nice chat with a couple of folks over there that live at 747, and the drug addicts are taking over the building. They're putting locks in the door so their druggy friends can come in and hang out there at night and do drugs. And there's yelling, screaming, causing anxiety and stress for the residents that are living there. And they're putting people at risk. Is the Twin Pines, they're not managing these properties properly, and they're putting the people at risk. You can't put drug addicts in with people with recovery, disabled people with drug that, it just doesn't work. And it certainly doesn't work with poor management and absolutely no supervision. I don't think you people would want to live there. Who can live with yelling and screaming and being stressed all the time? Within the first 2 months, 3 months of Twin Pines opening, there was a meth fire in the building with drug addicts doing meth. They're not helping anybody by doing this. It's not proper living arrangements. It's not safe. It's not healthy. And it's really, I would consider it an embarrassment to be a part of this Twin Pines. I know they come off as big heroes, providing housing, but they seem to provide the housing and walk away from the issues. What else? I always get so nervous. So the drug, and there's apparently quite a few people that are hanging out that not only they don't live in the building, they're non-residents. And that's exactly what the problem was in Burlington that we brought up to Twin Pines, Andrew. How is he going to prevent the same thing that happened in Burlington from happening here? And he never responded. And this is what's happening. Drug addicts are coming in. They're taking over the place. They're making it impossible for people who are in recovery, disabled, children, or whoever to live there safely and try to move on and improve their lives. So I'm not sure who is supposed to do this, if it's zoning or is it whoever. I mean, how can you support an organization who is allowing this to happen within their buildings? Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen.
Hi, I'm Tim O'Hara from Wilder. I'm here today to talk about a petition that I've been helping to circulate in the community, and I'll read the language to start off with my comments. It said, "We, the undersigned legal voters of the town of Hartford, hereby petition the Select Board of Hartford to add the following article to the warning for town meeting on March 3rd, 2026. Shall the voters of the town of Hartford advise the Select Board to adopt the following pledge? We affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people. We oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression. We declare ourselves an apartheid-free community, and to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support for Israel's apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation." This same pledge passed in 5 Vermont towns at last year's town meeting, including Thetford, closest to us. We've had volunteers going out to try and get signatures for it since the fall, and we did fall short of the 5% that would have compelled you as a board to take a vote on the matter. I'm here to ask if you would consider to take up the matter anyway and decide to place this on the ballot for town meeting. In 2024 and again in 2025, it came before the board to consider making a statement on the war in Gaza. And I heard the concerns of board members at that time who said they'd rather have an issue like this come to a town-wide vote. And that's part of why I've been helping this effort, because it would clarify to the board what the town's view is if an issue like this comes forward in the future. In Thetford, when they passed the pledge, the citizens there followed up with the board and town manager to work on policies to support and fulfill the language of the pledge. I think there is a way to do this in a way that doesn't kneecap the town or distract from the other vital business that we have. Just like the town came up with a climate action plan that accounts for the environmental impact of our decisions, could we come up with a plan that assesses the human rights impact of our town's decisions? There's precedent for this in communities in Western Massachusetts and other places in the US. They've done this already. It's not something that would happen overnight. There would be a process, but putting this pledge on the ballot could clarify to the town if this is a process that the Hartford voters would support. It's non-binding and advisory, so that it's open to interpretation how you would fulfill it. But I'd ask if you feel it's an issue of broad interest to the community to consider putting it on the ballot at this year's town meeting. Thank you.
Any others? Public comment? To address your issue, Tim, and I know that you understand it's non-advisory, you don't need the select board for this process. Going to the town meeting, the annual meeting, and addressing it there with your petition is my understanding, and John can verify this because he spoke with VLCT, because there is a section of the town meeting that talks about any other business non-binding. So.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that. I'm wondering, and I don't fully understand the process, but whether it would be possible for the board to take the initiative to make the decision to actually put the item on the ballot, on the paper ballot for the Tuesday after town meeting. I don't know if that's something that's within your authority or not.
The board will be considering that topic tonight as it approves the warning for the town meeting ballot. So they can consider it as part of that discussion. But the chair is correct. The input we have from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Legal Counsel is that this petition certainly looks like non-binding business, and that because the town has its town meeting split into two separate meetings, one where there's Australian ballot voting on money articles and things, core town functions, and where there's a separate floor meeting that talks about other topics, but also specifically has a line item for discussion of any other necessary and proper non-binding business. Both the VLCT legal counsel and our moderator have suggested that would be the preferred venue to discuss that matter. Again, if the board wishes to proceed in that way.
Yeah, well, certainly I'd defer to your all's discretion to understand the process better than I do. I'd say that as the person who probably talked to most of the signatories of the petition, I did get upwards of 100. I don't have a final count of how many signatures I actually had. I believe the understanding at the time was that it would be on the Australian ballot, and that was the preference. I think as organizers, that was our preference of how the vote would be held, but it's up to your discretion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Actually,
I just make one comment, because I'm gonna have to step out, unfortunately, to at 7 for a conflict that I have, and that's huge to be talked about at 7:15. So I just say that I really support putting it on the Australian ballot because of just purely numbers. Usually town meeting day, like floor meetings, you maybe get like 30 to 50 residents who are actually at the floor meeting. Whereas if we have it on the Australian ballot, I feel like it reaches more voters and gives a broader, kind of casts a broader net to the town.
Any other comments?
I'll speak briefly.
All right, Jim.
Ever since I've come on this board, I'm always kind of torn because I feel like in New England, we've always had this concept that we have town meetings, we have citizen engagement. But, Hartford on some level operates a little more like a city. And in my humble opinion, I think the requirement for petitions is too arduous. Like, right, what is it? We said there's 8,000 voters and you need 400 signatures. I'm struggling to get 30 for myself. So I think that I honor your pursuit and your efforts and your engagement. And I think that we need to maybe come up with new designs and new pathways to allow your passions and your concerns to be articulated and somehow translate back into the community. I don't have the answer to that right now. But when I read the kind of the situation that we're faced with as a town, it's very troubling to me because we want citizen engagement. We want people involved. And yet we've created these sort of like almost city-like barriers to that process. So I appreciate you stepping up and speaking to that matter.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else out there had a comment? No? Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Were you going to ask about home people for comments, public comments?
Oh, yeah.
If there are more here.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry, I didn't wanna do that.
I thought that was it, I'm sorry.
Your name and where your residence?
Thank you. Lucy Danger, residing in Hartford, White River Junction. I just want to thank Tim and express my support for that addition as well. And thank you to the board members who have discussed the logistical realities of how to approach this. I would, the word that's coming to mind is plead with you to try not to let this get bogged down in bureaucracy. I know that bureaucracy is your job, and this issue is so simple to me as a Hartford voter and a person who cares very deeply about this. And with a strong moral compass and confidence, I truly believe that there is not a downside to opening this conversation up to the voters in the way that will put it in front of as many people as possible. Part of the way that oppression works is that it gets hidden and normalized, and something that we can do here is to draw it into the open, put it in front of as many people as possible. This, the question of logistics is sort of a stand-in, I think, for how people feel about it. And I would encourage anyone thinking about this and members of the board to be brave in the position that you take here, and that I don't think it's that helpful to talk around this, and whether it's 5% or the number of voters or who talks about it or how many people see it. I am anti-genocide, and that is, I think, what this comes down to. We talk around this a lot, and if you are also anti-genocide, I encourage you to be brave in taking that stance and take the steps that are necessary to make that stance public, because that's what we need to do here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? And is there anybody online? Miranda? Still. Okay. Thank you. Then we will move on to select board comments and announcements. I'll start with Ashley in case you have to leave at some point.
Sure. My only comment is that I just wanted to give some credit to the demonstrators who were out front of the town hall today as I drove into the meeting. I think it's really encouraging to see people, kind of like Lucy just said, like making their stance on what's happening known, and demonstrating and protesting is part of democracy. It's part of our constitutional rights, and I'm really excited to see all the people, despite the really cold weather, coming out and taking a stance. And yeah, just wanted to say that I appreciated that, and it was exciting to drive into town hall to that scene of unity and yeah, human rights.
Right, Jim.
I just want to thank our town staff for all their hard work.
Thank you. Mike.
Nothing from me.
All right. I
Yeah, similar to Ashley, I just want to really just send appreciation to everyone in like a really awful time globally and nationally, who are sort of organizing folks around them to help express views that are meaningful and important to them on the level of the town, the nation, and the globe. So thank you.
Right.
Yeah, similar to my colleagues here. Really just thankful for the folks who are outside demonstrating in the cold, and folks for Upper Valley for Palestine for continuing this work. We've seen 2 ceasefire resolutions, and now we're seeing this ballot measure. And so I really appreciate their efforts in supporting Palestinians in Palestine, across the world, and
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's nothing for me tonight. Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to appointments. Is Tad Montgomery here?
He had told,
Is he online?
okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're gonna, this appointment is for Tad Montgomery to the Resilient Hartford Committee for a 3-year term. Anybody have any questions for Tad? Maybe he can introduce himself first and tell us a little bit about himself, other than what he put on his application.
He's waving at us.
Can you hear us, Tad?
Yes, I can. Can you all hear me?
Yes, and we can see you too. Nice butterfly wings.
My little friend in the background here.
Yes. So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Tad?
Yeah, sorry I can't be there in person. I'm getting over a cold and didn't want to expose anyone. Don't know if I'm still contagious.
You want to identify what town you're from?
Wilder.
Okay, thank you.
I live on Depot Street.
You don't need to tell us that.
My background is in ecological engineering. I've dedicated my life to trying to address climate change in many different ways. I've been sitting in on a bunch of different committees, the Energy Committee for probably a couple of years now. I was the City of Lebanon's Energy and Facilities Manager for 7 years. But I've also been sitting in on the, the Conservation Commission, which I'm really enjoying, and the Resilient Hartford, and I've started the Climate Action Steering Team, the Housing Committee, and the Public Safety Coalition I intend to join also, or at least start to attend and introduce some projects that I'm working on. I have a bunch of things that I'm doing that I would say relate to community resilience. I'm trying to start an acupuncture clinic in Hartford to treat addiction specifically, working with a team of people, including an acupuncturist on that, using very specific techniques that can help with addiction. I am considering starting a business, or I'm exploring the development of a business to renovate big old houses in Vermont. Make them as close to net zero energy as possible and subdivide them into multiple units to create little neighborhoods and provide much lower cost housing in dense areas. I am working with a group of people just starting a project to explore the development of a tool lending library in town. Most recently, I met with the Wilder Athletic Club and library trustees and got some substantial interest in that project. And I also am exploring doing a permaculture design course that would fit very well into the current or the recent work of Resilient Hartford. Bunch of other projects as well, but that's a sample of what I'm doing these days, aside from being sick.
Thank you. Let me see if there's any questions from any board members. Ashley?
I just have a comment, which is that I just sent an email today, Tad, to Vermont Works for Women about the tool library. And so hopefully I'll be putting you in touch with one of their coordinators.
Thanks, Ashley.
I think it's an awesome idea. And I think as the liaison to the Resilient Hartford Committee, you know, Tad is often at the meetings and always has great contributions. And I think you'd be an excellent addition to the committee.
Any other questions or comments for Tad? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tad, for stepping up and for your engagement that runs deep and wide. You caught my attention on a few things, in particular the Public Safety Coalition, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Perhaps there seems to me to be synergies between that group's efforts and Resilient Hartford, in that social networks are the foundational the fabric, the foundation of both of those efforts. We stand to do really well in both areas if we have strong social networks, particularly like the neighborhood level. So I'm interested if you share that perspective and if you have any additional ideas on that.
I definitely agree with what you just said, Eric. My primary incentive to meet with the Public Safety Coalition is to present my idea of a acupuncture clinic to treat addiction. That's the main reason, but I also am hoping to learn about that work, and who knows what synergies will come out of that.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Any other comments? Is there anybody online? Okay, absolutely, Mike.
All right, Madam Chair, I move that the Select Board appoint Tad Montgomery to the Resilient Hartford Committee for a 3-year term, beginning January 20th, 2026, and January 19th, 2029.
Is there a second?
A second?
A second from Ashley. Any other comments before we vote? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Ted.
Congratulations,
Thank
Ted.
you all.
Consider the appointment of Jason Kelley to the Sister Cities Committee for a 3-year term. Is Jason online?
They have a meeting tonight. He might.
Oh, okay. Something maybe we want to pass over in case he comes out of his meeting. Sister Cities is meeting at the same time we are.
Oh, okay.
I know he had told Lana he planned to be here.
We did. Okay, so we'll come back to this. All right. All right, then let us move on to the town manager report.
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you very much. It's pretty brief. Again, a recap of warrant information night that took place 8 days ago here in this room. At that event, presenters previewed proposed purchases with local option tax revenues. There was a discussion of a water project in Wilder, another water project in the White River Junction area, and finally, a discussion of the TIF district and how plans are in place to kind of wrap up that program successfully, as explained by the planning department's director, Lori Hirschfield. The next events in the town meeting cycle include a budget and candidates night to be held Monday, February 23rd at 7 o'clock at the high school auditorium, and the town and school district meeting on Saturday, February 28th at 10 a.m., again at the high school auditorium this year. Voting, of course, will take place at the high school gymnasium Tuesday, March 3rd from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I am pleased to report that the town has hired Todd Law as its next Director of Public Works. Todd will spend his first week beginning next week on the transition with retiring DPW Director Brian Gazda. Todd comes with many years of experience in public works, having worked for VTrans for a number of years and also for about a decade as Montpelier's Director of Public Works. We, of course, wish Todd all the best as he takes the reins of a large and complex organization. We also thank Brian Gazda for his years of service to the town and wish him a long, happy, healthy retirement. And a reminder, finally, that taxes are due. The second payment of taxes are due on or before Friday, February 6th. Beyond that, I have a few other announcements from the clerk's office. Candidate petitions and a candidate consent form are due to the clerk's office by 5 p.m. on Monday, January 26th, again in the clerk's office. The Environmental Sustainability Coordinator reports that he and the town planner are continuing their work on updating the town's hazard mitigation plan. He also reports that level 3 EV fast chargers, that project is moving along for South Main Street parking lot installation. Equipment has been ordered and Norwich Technologies is getting all of the required logistics in order. Chargers should be installed sometime in the spring. Dana notes that those fast EV chargers charge a vehicle in under 45 minutes. And funding for these chargers is coming from federal dollars and a match by the installers. Parks and Rec Department notes that the tree board is looking for new members. If anyone's interested, please contact Lana Livingston at the Town of Hartford Town Manager's Office if you are interested. The Department of Parks and Rec also continues to seek applicants for the Amtrak caretaker position. And that is currently being advertised with the department. A review of the Rec Department's master plan continues, and they hope to come before the Select Board with a selection in the next couple of board meetings. The Department of Public Works notes that the director is working on his transition plan for the incoming DPW director. They had performed snow operations on a number of dates in the recent in this month, including January 1st, 2nd, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 12th. They performed winter maintenance by filling in potholes on various town roads as well. At the Quechee Pollution Abatement Plant, a EQ basin air blower failed, and a new one has been ordered under emergency procurement process due to the environmental impact of not having the blower in good operating condition. We're in touch with the state about our efforts to deal with this just as soon as we can. The solid waste transfer station has welcomed Randy Largess as the new full-time site attendant. Randy has prior warehouse and front-end loader experience, which will be a great asset, keeping the operation moving smoothly. The fire department notes that 2025 concluded with the highest number of calls for service in the department's history, surpassing 3,000 calls for the first time. They would like to congratulate firefighters Nick Alden and Matthew McCabe for successfully completing their one-year probationary periods at work, and they look forward to their continued contributions and long careers within the department. Again, Scott Cooney points out that they remain committed to meeting the growing needs of the community and ensuring the highest level of service. They will continue to evaluate staffing levels, training, and resources to be able to provide essential services as call volumes trend upward. The police department has noted some recent events involving the police department. One traffic stop resulted in the arrest for arrest warrants, false reports to law enforcement, unlawful trespass, and operating under a suspended license. Another traffic stop resulted in cocaine being identified in the vehicle and arrests being made for false information to law enforcement officers and possession of cocaine. The Outreach Division held another situation table on January 8th. One of the new situations was assisting a person who has needed significant assistance from police and fire personnel. This is an example of their ability to work to both lower the risk, and lessen the need for emergency public safety assistance.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Okay. So then we will move on to,
Madam Chair,
oh, I'm sorry.
one question if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I noticed in, John, in the payment manifest, $5,200 related to the grease trap at the senior center. Is that project, correction complete now, or is this an ongoing thing?
It's an ongoing project. They're trying to work with the contractor to time the excavation and completion of work to minimize the impact on the kitchen, to limit it hopefully to a 2-week window during which they will be able to either go off site for meals or have them brought in. So the answer is it's very much underway still.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So then we will move on to board reports, motions, and ordinances. And first, under 5A is the adoption of the FY27 general fund budget.
Yes, Madam Chair, I've provided a list of motions that could be articulated, preferably, as Lana says, one at a time. But the practice has been in town that we present motions based upon the most recent approvals we've had from the select board in terms of approving not only the general fund budget, but also the enterprise fund budgets, the transfer station fund, the White River Water Fund, Quechee Water Fund, White River Wastewater, and Quechee Wastewater. These numbers are all reflected in the decisions to the tentative decisions made to date by the select board to approve the budgets as refined by the select board working with staff.
This gentleman is Jason Kelley. No, okay. So then we will move on then to adoption of the FY, should be FY 27.
Yes.
General fund budget.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely right. 27 across the board.
Chair?
Yes, Ida.
I move that the select board approve the fiscal year 2026 to 27 general fund budget totaling $23,585,109.39 to be funded with $3,900,272.87 in non-tax revenue, $1,200,000 from the unassigned fund balance, $1,100,000 in local option sales tax revenue, and $17,384,836.52 to be raised by property taxes.
Is there a second? Second by Miranda. Any questions before we vote? Tim?
One question. So on the 1.1 million local option sales tax, it's a little bit of a funny one, right? Because it's anticipated revenue. I mean, and I don't want to mince words here, but I feel like we need to clarify the voters that we anticipate that we will be receiving local option sales tax of 1.1 million to contribute to this budget. But candidly, we don't know that. It could be more and it could be a little bit less.
Perhaps a friendly amendment is in order.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it would be worth inserting as a change anticipated. I think it might be worth it to just clarify that we were enthusiastically expecting that this is indeed the number, but it is something that's a little bit odd because it's a future forecast scenario.
Sure. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yes.
So I think the maker of the motion have to withdraw the motion.
Right.
Okay, I'll withdraw my concerns then and we'll move forward.
Okay.
I can't just accept the friendly amendment to the motion. I could just accept the friendly amendment to add anticipated before $1,100,000.
Okay, and the second was Miranda. I agree. Okay. Okay. So all those in favor to the amendment as Ida has stated?
The motion as amended.
Yes.
Or is there a vote on the amendment first?
It's a friendly amendment, so we don't have to vote on
Yeah,
it.
very good.
Right.
So you're voting on the amended motion.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Eric.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So,
Thank you for being friendly.
all right, so the next one, adoption of FY 27 transfer station fund budget. Is there a motion? Yes, Mike?
I move the select board approve the fiscal year 2026-27 solid waste fund budget totaling $688,609.79 and funded with $550,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Ida. Any other comments?
I have a brief comment. I have always felt that enterprise funds, the concept is that they are, arguably, we'll call it revenue neutral from the perspective that you're operating an enterprise and then the revenue offsets that enterprise, hopefully at a net zero. Obviously, with the transfer fund, we have a challenge related to a myriad of issues around recycling and so on and so forth. But I think that it's worth noting that that particular enterprise fund is short by not an insignificant number. So I think that moving forward from a policy standpoint, we should be working towards, if we're identifying it as an enterprise fund, the objective should be that it's revenue neutral in the sense that the revenue covers the expense.
I'll just respond briefly by saying, yes, I'm aware of that concern. I think others had mentioned it as well. I've discussed it with Brian Gazda, who I think is going to be online, and he's aware of the fact that in the past, budgets for the solid waste fund or the transfer station have been wildly inaccurate. And they have, for several years running, shown a paper deficit when the budgets are adopted, only to prove very close to break even by the time the year end is actually reached. So again, that's the history. I certainly do agree that a closer eye should be had with respect to budgeting for that enterprise fund in the future. And I'm sure Brian and Todd Law and I will all be discussing that concern during that transition period.
Excellent. Thank you.
Does that sound right to you, Brian?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, any opposed? We will move on then. Adoption of FY27 White River Water Fund budget. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the select board adopt the FY 26-27 White River Water Fund budget and approve, select board approve of the fiscal year 26-27 White River Water Fund budget totaling $1,269,799.79 to be funded with $1,349,800 of revenue.
Is there a second? Second by Miranda. Any comments before we vote? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next one, adoption of FY27 Quechee Water Fund budget.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Miranda.
I move that the select board approve of the fiscal year 2026-27 Quechee Water Fund budget totaling $589,450.66 to be funded with $589,450 of revenue.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mike. Any comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, any opposed? So we will move on then to the adoption of the FY27 White River Wastewater Fund budget. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes. Ashley?
Make sure I get the right one here. Okay, I move that the select board approved of the fiscal year 2026 to 2027 White River Wastewater Fund budget totaling $2,192,094.73 to be funded with $2,220,090 of revenue.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Miranda. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we will then move on to the last one, adoption of FY27 Quechee Wastewater Fund budget.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tim?
I move that the select board approve the fiscal year 2026-27 Quechee wastewater fund budget totaling $1,562,652.52 to be funded with $1,562,750 of revenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm gonna say Eric, because I saw his hand before.
It's a race.
It's like three for, okay, any comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 And so, any opposed? 7-0. All right, so then we will move on to the review and approve town meeting warrant.
Can I make a suggestion, Madam Chair?
Sure.
And that's only that maybe we could at least conclude the discussion about all the items except the possible resolution up front, and then leave for the end of the discussion the question of whether you'd like to add that additional article.
Seems like a great idea.
Yes.
Can I argue though that I'm leaving and I'd like to be here for the conversation, and if we do it now, I'll be able to.
I don't necessarily think that the front end articles are gonna take a ton of time, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
We just like review the warrant and then just make a motion.
I think you could say, let's approve tentatively the town meeting warning as written, knowing that we'll discuss whether to add an article. That way you could just move on with that next piece of business.
Do we need to read the whole thing?
I don't think so.
I'm assuming everybody has read it. Okay, so I'll take a motion. Yes, Mike?
And move that we approve the town meeting warning with the caveat that there was one additional item we are going to consider to add to it as well. Resolution.
I'll second that.
All right, a second by Tim. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, 7-0. So we're gonna discuss right now the issue of the
Seems
resolution.
most appropriate either at this item or the next one or both. Because the next one is the one for the
question
floor
about
vote.
About the warrant is listed. This is the order that they're going to appear in.
Yes,
Is there a possibility that we could change the order, meaning specifically that the local option tax items be moved up to the top before all the appropriations?
well, this is the standard format that I've seen in recent years. It doesn't mean it can't change.
Okay.
The only reason I'm worried about changing really of anything is that you're going to sign a certain page and then that'll be published. And to reorient that might implicate either allowing us to cut and paste later
Yeah,
or to have another meeting.
okay, well, can we just make a note to think about that for next year?
I'm happy to make that note.
Just because I feel like those are, I don't know, maybe it's my bias and it's a conversation that we should have, but I think those are really important for people to read carefully because they're town operations related versus appropriations, which are for organizations that are asking for support from the town. So it just prioritization, would be my priority from where I sit, that the town operations ones be, put first so people can read them before they're really tired of reading. Because there's so
that's a
many.
valid point.
Yeah, but if it's logistically difficult to do it this year, then I would just like to maybe put that to Lisa to
Sure.
have in her, mental list or of something that we can think about when there's sufficient time before our next election.
It certainly works for me.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a minor clarification, and apologize for asking this after we've approved a motion, but Article 2, are we going to include, will that include the word anticipated as we approved for the earlier general fund budget language?
I suppose that could be done, yes, to be consistent. Yeah.
I think it's valid, honestly. I didn't bring it up just to be pesky. I think it needs to be clear to voters that it's not a known, it's anticipated.
All right, do we?
And the good news is that it's not on the signature page. So we
Okay.
could insert that word
All right.
easily enough.
Do we need to do anything procedurally, Madam Chair, since I'm raising this issue after we've approved it?
I think the consensus of the board will be adequate for Lana and me to make that change.
Is anybody opposed to that? Okay.
Thank you, Eric, for bringing that up.
Yes.
I just wanted to know why you wanted to change it and you explained it, so I appreciate that.
Okay. I had a different thought, but I'm gonna put it to rest. Okay. So now we're at the discussion phase of the resolution.
Madam Chair?
Mike?
Just a couple of thoughts that I'm having. So I was on the board as the chair when this came up. It's resolution. I voted against it then because I felt that a matter like that should be put to the voters, as opposed to just, maybe only 4 members of the select board adopting a resolution like that on behalf of the entire town. That's the reason why I voted against it. In this particular one, I don't know yet how I will vote when I go to the ballot box, but I'm not necessarily a fan of the select board being a gatekeeper, keeping this out. This has come up before us a number of times. It's something there certainly is a constituency for in the town. And that's why I would support putting it on the Australian ballot. If the voters of Hartford feel that it's an unwise resolution, they won't approve it. If they think it's the right thing to do, they will. So I'm in favor of adding it to the Australian ballot.
Okay. Any other comments? Ashley?
Yeah, if I may, just before I have to go here in 4 minutes, I agree with Mike's sentiment. This has come up since I've been on the board once before, and we didn't feel that we had a lot of feedback. There wasn't a petition at the time that had happened the year prior. It's just, I feel like there's been so much back and forth with an amazing, dedicated group of people, and that we owe it to the voters to let them make the decision. And I think that it's important that we talk about what's happening globally, not in every meeting, not that we focus on town business, but I think this is really important. I think that, it's something that we should be bringing attention to. So yeah, I hope that we can put it on the ballot. I know that if it doesn't, if there's not a majority of board members that vote that way, it can go to town meeting day, or the floor meeting. But I'll just reiterate that, I think anyone who's been to town meeting day or the floor meeting versus voting day on the Australian ballot, the turnout is significantly different. And I think we want to put it in front of as many voters as possible. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with both Mike and Ashley. I would like to see it on the ballot if we are able to have it on the Australian ballot versus on the floor. Just for participation purposes, I feel like all of the work that's happened between the 2 resolutions and now this ballot measure, all of the signatures that have been collected really show the town wants to speak on this. And so I'd like to give as many voters the opportunity as possible to make their voices heard.
I have to say, it's interesting what Mike said, and I would agree with Mike. And yet the first time I voted for it. And then the second time I felt like they was placing too much emphasis on the board rather than on the voters. And so it's interesting from which perspective you come. And, so I think, I agree. I think it should be put to the Australian ballot.
May I say just 1 or 2 remarks about, as a devil's advocate?
Sure.
Just to fill out the conversation. And that is that by their own admission, they've come up short on the number of needed signatures on their petition to kind of force the issue. And so my concern would be line drawing next time you have a group that doesn't have enough signatures to warrant being placed on the ballot. How does the select board or the clerk say no at that point?
Madam Chair, could I just note that I believe that these petitioners were prohibited from gathering signatures at the most popular place to gather signatures in Hartford. So I don't, that makes it a little more difficult.
Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I deeply appreciate the work that's gone into petitioning, the thoughtful language, the information that's been shared with us. From a process perspective, though, I'm not really keen on this. The problem that I have with it is that it hasn't been warned on this agenda. And so there are members of the public that might want to speak about this and might want to participate in this conversation that have not had the opportunity to do so, or will not have the opportunity to do so if we move ahead. So from a process perspective, I don't like that. Also, from a process perspective, I'm not interested in making a statement that is solely I would prefer to make a statement or have the town commit to something that is an act of resistance, as opposed to just a resolution that we're not going to be able to do anything about, or it won't have any teeth, so to speak. And so with that in mind, the question that I ask is the last clause or phrase in the resolution is about the pledge. And Mr. O'Hara has provided us with some with an example from Thetford. But it seems to me like to go through this process the right way is to understand what that pledge might look like in Hartford, rather than putting it to the voters. And then we come back and try to figure out what the pledge is. What are we pledging to? What are we doing? What action are we taking? I would rather have a conversation where we're leading off with, here's a proposal of what we pledge to do, boycotts or what have you. And if it changes, it may change, but at least give people a sense of what sacrifice we would be making. Because if we're not making a sacrifice, probably we're not going to have any impact. That's just my sort of simple Newtonian version of the world. Is like, if you want to move something, a mass object, you have to do work. So we have to make sacrifices, and if we should understand what those things are. So, and then the third part of it is, what does it mean in perpetuity? Like, to have this on the books? We haven't explored that. So does that mean that similar conflicts that someone deems as apartheid-like or apartheid, we then go through a similar process for boycotts? And when does the one in the Middle East end? Like, there's a lot of unknowns to me, and it seems to me that this is putting the cart before the horse. It makes much more sense to me to have a discussion about what this might look like, so that we have an opportunity to inform the voters on what exactly they are voting in favor or against. Thank you.
Thank you. Miranda?
I'm going to push back on you a little bit. I really appreciate your comments. I think that I do feel like the email being included was warned enough in the agenda. I know it's not an agenda item in and of itself, but I feel like if someone went through our agenda, then they know that it was happening. I know we've also gotten emails from community members about this issue because I think they've either read the agenda or knew that we would be discussing it. I also feel like, to me, I know that the pledge doesn't have a lot of tooth. There's not like any direct action item behind it, but I feel like what it does is like gives town staff and the select board, we get to hear from our community members about how they feel about this issue. And then when community members, because I'm sure Upper Rally for Palestine, I know, is working on other things as well, when they have ideas that they're bringing to the board about, like maybe what, like something similar to what Thetford is doing, that we at least have some basis to act on it, because we've heard from the community that this is something that they support. Whether or not we adopt, something similar to what Thetford is doing, I think it at least gives us a starting point. And I feel like, again, just my opinion, that like for the last 2-3 years now, it feels like the community has been like kind of anxious to feel heard. And I feel like they haven't felt that because, these things haven't passed so far. And so I feel like this gives them an opportunity to at least, take a stance on like at least this pledge as a community.
Just to offer another perspective on that, I think it's a tall order, or it's a lofty expectation. That I agree that some people have found this in the packet, and others have been notified probably through other channels. But I think it's a lofty expectation that to assume that the public is aware of this as a possibility for inclusion, and public that might want to weigh in. I think that's pretty optimistic. Secondly, I would say that I seem to have lost my train of thought. We'll have to come back to that, sorry.
Ida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Eric, I hear you. I hear your concerns and your, questions or just points about some imperfections in the process and some vagueness around what the implications are. I think, it's just a difference in temperament maybe or something, but those are things that I'm comfortable with, comfortable enough to be very supportive of this. The imperfections in the process and the vagueness and what exactly it's going to mean in the future. I think echoing what Mike said, I think we've heard community members, their dedication, their effort, their concern, their urgency around bringing, around having the town express a point of view on a major issue of our current moment. And I think the fact that we've given feedback as a board before, not everyone, not this exact board, but as a board, we've given feedback that, it'd be great to have more input from the town overall. And this is what we're being asked to allow voters to weigh in on now. I agree with folks that have said to us over email that, there isn't a big downside to putting this on the ballot. I think the only downside is that there's so many things on the ballot this year that it could overwhelm voters, but that's the ballot we have, and that's what we're being asked to, where we're being asked to include it. So I support this.
Tim?
There's plenty of things that have gone on this planet that would warrant a ballot article about how to act as human beings to each other. I'm really kind of troubled by this on a number of reasons. I mean, I've been following the international stage for a while, and there's plenty of messes out there. But I kind of am tying in a little bit to what Eric's points were and what John's points are, and that is like, we are a town, we have kind of rules such as they are. One point that I made reflecting on the notes for this meeting are that I think our requirement for getting something discussed or engaged in the community needs to be lower. Like that number is crazy to me. I've participated in many elections, and the number of voters, even in a peak presidential election, were around 6,000 maybe or something of that nature. So I know we currently have a number of like 8,000. Like, we got to work on the voter checklist requirement thing. Like, because for me to get a petition on a ballot in this town, maybe should be under 200 or some other number. So that's point one. Point two is I just don't think it's appropriate to, as you say, like, if it hasn't been articulated out to the community, we haven't met the requirements for getting something on the petition, et cetera, everything that's been brought up as an issue around this from a human rights standpoint is completely valid. But I just don't think it belongs here right now for me. I think we have to come up with another model or scenario where we can talk about this as a community. And my vision would be something more broad, that we take the rules of how we want humanity to be, and we embrace it as a town for anything. Pick a place, South Africa, Africa, like there's messes all over the place that, if we as a town want to adhere to human principles, then we can do that, and we can embrace it and say that we care about it. But it just seems like at this moment in time and at this moment in history, we're sort of picking something that is indeed a passionate, important issue right now. But the process and how we're kind of going about it, I think I'm reluctant to embrace the idea of just like clicking this through and putting it, on a warning, if you will.
Eric, did you make that?
I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my point was going to be to counter the argument that we want to get this in front of as many people as possible, so it should be on the ballot and not at town meeting day. And I think even in the most optimistic case, you're going to have more people coming to vote via Australian ballot. But perhaps this is an opportunity to invite more people into a discussion that's perhaps more robust, and sort of bring back some of that old New England style town meeting on the Saturday before we go to the polls to vote by Australian ballot. So I would encourage the members of the board to to think about letting that play its course and let the advocates come to town meeting day, raise the word as far and wide as they can to get as many people out. And then there potentially is a more robust discussion, which actually could be quite helpful. Like understanding what are the implications of this. Like it could be a lot more interesting, I think, to have a floor meeting discussion around this than I'm just putting it on here. And again, it ties in with my general uneasiness about the process. Thank you.
Brandon?
I'm gonna push back on you again. Only because now that we're coming, we're two years into this now. I just wonder if like a discussion won't be productive at this point, especially because I think what's being proposed here is just this pledge and not necessarily anything actionable. Like this is an action in a stance, but like I don't think that the ask is for more. So having a discussion about what else it could look like would really like muddy the waters. And I think the point is just to take this stance and then we can move forward from having this like jumping off point. Yeah, sorry. And I agree. I would like more people to come to town meeting day. But I just don't know if a discussion will be as productive versus like just being able to, fill in your box at the ballot. I don't know. That's my thought process.
Yeah.
It's just to make a brief comment. I'll keep it short,
Just
but
introduce yourself
to respond to,
Yeah. you
sorry,
have to
Introduce yourself again, please.
Tim O'Hara from Wilder.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just to briefly respond to some of the concerns. And Tim, I hear what you're saying, but also to your point where if the threshold had been lower for signatures, we probably would have reached it much earlier and had this on the warning earlier. And I do apologize for not having brought it to you sooner, but we are where we are, and so it's really up to your discretion to decide. And to your point about having discussion, whether this factors in or not, it's certainly our intent as organizers to host informational events, public discussions, public events leading up to town meeting, whether it's a floor meeting or an Australian ballot vote, to inform people more on what we're talking about with this pledge. So just those comments. Thank you.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Chair,
Miranda?
I move, hold on if I can get the. I move that the board adopt adding the apartheid-free communities pledge to the town, the 2026.
You have to say it louder
Sorry.
so that
I'm
Annie
sorry.
can hear it.
I move that the board add the apartheid-free communities pledge to the 2026 town meeting ballot.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ida. Any comments? I think I'll take a roll call vote on this. Okay, I'll start with Eric.
Nay.
All right, Miranda,
Aye.
Ida,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Tim,
Nay.
and I'll vote aye. So we have 4-6. 4-2, excuse me. I was saying 4 and 2. My math is still good, but not here. Okay, so the motion passes. Okay, so we will move on then to the review and approve town and school district meeting warning.
Yes, Madam Chair, on the next portion of your agenda is the warning, again, based on the format of prior years' warnings. We have a line for the reports of the town officers, which is basically a review and highlighting of the town report. Second item is to designate the tax payment due dates, not terribly controversial, I imagine. And then third is to authorize the compensation, the same compensation this year as was awarded in the previous year for select board, for town officers. And finally, again, this generic catch-all to do any other necessary and proper non-binding business.
Yes, Mike?
If someone has comments or question on the motion. on this one.
Right.
Done.
Think you're on?
Okay, Madam Chair, I move that the select board approve the town and school district meeting warrant.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Tim. Any comments? Any online? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's 6.
Very good.
Okay. Yes,
Supporting
wanna-
Scott Kelley.
is, okay. Maybe Mr. Kelley went home because it was too cold.
It's possible. C'est possible.
Yeah.
Is our next item the CLA report?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
And
so.
that's, is Vincent online? Is that?
I imagine so. I hadn't heard that he was going to do so, but maybe he's online.
Yeah,
Hold on, Rick has something to say.
I was just gonna say, it might be a little bit longer, so take a
I mean, is it
bathroom
appropriate?
break.
Yeah, whatever you feel.
He's got it home, he can put it.
Probably a good time to just move past all the like warrants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kind of change it, right?
yeah.
Sounds
Rick has a comment.
Rick, can you give us 5 minutes?
Okay, he says.
He said, okay?
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
thanks, Rick. Ready, Nick? Okay, 6 of us are back. Ashley is out at the moment. So we will move on to the assessor's review of state common level of appraisal. That's the CLA report.
Yes, Madam Chair, we had a pretty good letter from the state following our reassessment. And Rick and I have been planning to come, and tonight's the night to kind of summarize it for you and any other questions to be answered by Rick that might come up for the discussion.
Okay, Rick, would you like to talk with us?
Sure, thank you. And I apologize for the poor lighting. I'm in a dark home office.
You look fine to us.
Okay. So as John said, there was a letter from the state showing that our common level of appraisal is 99.09%. And the COD, or the coefficient of dispersion, is 10.82%. These are very good numbers. I'm really pleased with those numbers. So going on beyond the I'm assuming you can see the report that I provided.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So going on beyond the letter, I gave a brief description of some of the results. So I'll get down into the results. So I highlighted in the certified final computation sheet, I highlighted the call it the more important, they're all important, but the more important numbers, and that is the residential, mobile home, and condo, and as well the vacant land ratios and results. So for R1, which is the residential properties with less than 6 acres, we have a ratio of 99.9%, and the coefficient of dispersion is 10.19. For residential properties above 6 acres, with more than 6 acres, the ratio is 94.32, and the COD is 10.99. And then the mobile homes with no land, so that would be mobile homes in a park. We have a ratio of 103.95 and a COD of 16.59. And traditionally, the mobile homes are a little more difficult to really hone in on the value because the values vary considerably. A lot of the mobile homes are lower priced. Anything built, I think, before 1978 or 1975, I forget now, anything built before that period cannot be financed through a lender. So those are cash sales. And it really depends on who's willing to buy the property. So the cash offer can vary tremendously. The condition of the mobile home after being 50 years old can vary tremendously. So those numbers are a little harder to tighten down, but they're still good numbers. The 103.95 and the 16.59 for the COD, those are still good numbers. Moving further down the list, you'll see the condo highlighted, a ratio of 100.04 and a COD of 10.4. And then the vacant land, this is difficult. The vacant land is a ratio of 102.75. The COD is 36.93. That's high, but that's because many of the sales that were used in the analysis were some of the Quechee lots, and those values really varied tremendously. Some lots were selling for 30,000 and a similar lot sold for 70,000. So there's just no rhyme or reason to the prices on those lots. So we end up a little further down with a grand total of 99.09 for the applied ratio and the COD of 10.82. As I said, those are good numbers. So any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Tim?
Hi, thank you for all your work on this. One of the things I was really kind of struck by, and I noticed this on the school side too, because I've attended some of their meetings around their budget. It seems like Vermont is doing this funny thing where they, you know, I was expecting our CLA to be around 100% and it was 100%, but it looks like they're trying to mitigate like the fact that a significant amount of Vermont still doesn't have good CLA situations. So they do this, they're doing this funny adjustment, if you will, that puts Hartford at like 140%.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or comments around that? Like, I mean, that seems like that might be something that ultimately disappears, or like depending on, you know, what happens fiscally in Vermont.
Right. It won't disappear, but it will improve over time because the state just last year enacted a 6-year reassessment process. So every town has to reassess at least every 6 years. As it was before last year, a town could go 30 years without a reassessment. So the CLAs, the common level of appraisals, could be extremely low or extremely high depending on the market. So once every town gets through this process, so it'll take 6 to 12 years, but once every town gets through this process, that overall ratio that I think you saw in the opening letter of 70% for the state, that'll tighten up.
So just a brief follow-up to that. So as you may know, I was sort of an advocate for getting this CLA thing sorted out in Hartford to the benefit of Hartford. I'm just kind of curious, like whether you have any ideas or recommendations around how we manage it moving forward. Do we, I think Hartford many, many years ago used to do about a quarter, 25% of the town every year to try and kind of keep these up. Is there some strategy that we should be adopting to kind of not slip back down into that, situation we had before? Like I don't think we have a plan for like how we're going to manage this moving forward.
Well, there is an initial plan, and I discussed that, I think during the budget process. I wanted to hire an additional person for the office, and that person would go out and re-inspect every property in town. So we do about 20 to 25% of the properties throughout town every year. And so that within that 6-year reassessment cycle, every property has been looked at.
Mm-hmm.
As you remember, most of you know, when we started the reassessment project about two years ago now, we only had 2 proposals, and neither company had the staff to do the full inspection during the revaluation process. So we had to do a hybrid approach and look at some properties and look at boots on the ground, and then look at other properties through aerial imagery and other methods. But if we have another person in the department, that person would be spending the vast majority of their time doing those inspections. So we have actually go out and physically look at every property in town.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Rick? Looks like nobody has any other questions, Rick, but I appreciate all that you've done here. And I really appreciate your explaining the comment to Eric on his email.
I'll add one other thing to Tim's question. Tim mentioned that the town went out and looked at different villages every year. One thing we do is on these ratio reports, these analysis that we do, we look at different categories in different neighborhoods to see if there's maybe a section of the town or a different class of property in town that has fallen out of line with the others. So for example, let's say most of the properties in town are assessed at 99%. and then something happens to a neighborhood or a class of property like condos, the market changes and the ratio increases or decreases tremendously, then we would have to fix that class or that neighborhood to be in line with the rest of the town. So we wouldn't have one neighborhood or one class of property at, say, 70%, and the rest of the town is at 99%. So we watch that and make the adjustments as we need.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. You're welcome.
Thanks, Rick.
Do you have a question?
No, just thank you. And are we adopting this or is it just information?
No, it's just informational.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. The next one is 2026 VTrans road mileage certification.
Brian Gazda.
Good evening. I actually think this will probably be my last official act in front of you. But this is our annual mileage for VTrans. And if you take a look at it, we have to do this every year. And for the newer members on the board, this just sets how much money we get within the general fund for highway maintenance. But it's also what's utilized with our official town map. So I am just requesting the annual adoption for our highway mileage certification.
Is it correct, Brian, that there's been no change in the amount of mileage over the last year?
Right, John. Last year we had some, if you remember, we had a couple of revisions just due to the new work they did on Route 5. So there's no change from last year, correct?
Anybody have any questions for Brian? Tim?
Brief, Brian. Brian, have you run into this? I know some other towns in Vermont have run into this problem associated with like what we'll call a class 4 road being pushed to a desire to make it a class 3, or, there's these funny little nuances in Vermont around like a trail or a class 4 road. Have we run into any of this problem in Hartford, or we haven't really faced that at all?
I mean, well, we've had probably since I've been here, Tim, we've had some requests, people looking to take a class 4 about what it would take to turn into a class 3. I know after the 23 flooding, we had actually looked at River Road, which is a class 3 road, and we had met with some representatives in the neighboring town about should we turn that section into a class 4 road. So yes, there's been some discussion on it, but no real movement on anything.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mike.
Madam Chair, I move that the select board certify the certificate of highway mileage for the year ending February 10th, 2026 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, a second from Tim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Much, Brian.
I just
Best
want to
wishes.
thank everybody for my tenure. It was too short, but I want to thank everybody for your support you've given to the DPW during my term as director. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good luck and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are next on to consider request to hang banners on town light poles.
Yes, we've heard from Cedar O'Dowd on behalf of JAM, and they'd like to publicize an upcoming independent film festival with banners, as they did last year. They've given us an application. I think they are requesting that the town help with the setting up of the banners, and there is a provision by which we can charge a small fee to help them do that. And of course, they have provided several samples of what these banners will look like.
Is Cedar on? Okay.
Yeah, hi, I'm right here.
Hi, Cedar.
Hi.
You want to identify yourself?
What?
Want to identify yourself for any public that might be watching?
Oh, yeah. I'm Cedar O'Dowd. I work for Junction Arts and Media, the cable access station that is currently covering this meeting. But I also work for the White River Indie Film Festival that's kind of under the Junction Arts and Media umbrella. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Cedar? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Cedar. I think the process requests the date of the event. Is there a date or a time period for this event?
Yeah, the film festival is March 1st through 8th.
Okay, thank you. Can we add a place on the form, John, for that information?
I thought he had it like 210 to 310 or something?
Those are
Yes.
the dates that'll be hung, not the date of the event. And
Right.
Oh, okay.
Form just asked for that, so it seems like we ought to have in the form that we ask applicants to fill out, a place for them to
We
submit that
we can certainly
information.
add that question. And I gather the answer in this case is March 1 through 8 is the film series?
Right.
Okay.
So there's display date and then event date. Is
Yeah.
what you're kind of getting at.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if applicable, because not all banners are tied to an event.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? I will take a motion.
Sure.
Yes, Mike?
Madam Chair, I move that the select board approve the application of Junction Arts and Media to hang banners on light poles from February 10th, 26 to March 10th.
There's a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Eric. Any comments? Anybody online? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll abstain. And Cedar, as I did before, doesn't have anything to do with this. It's hopefully in the next month or so, we can actually, I said after budget, we will come back to our banner flag policy. Thank you
Thanks, Cedar.
and good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, the next one is to review and approve the 2026 annual select board cycle calendar.
Yes, Mary, as you may recall, I think it was Kim Souza who originally generated a version of this document. And the expectation, I think, is that now that we're into a new year, the board would have an opportunity to adopt it for use in the coming year or this current year, or to do so only with some additional items in it or deletions made from it. It's up to you as to whether you want to make any changes.
All right. Any questions, comments, suggestions, changes?
Well, I appreciate the chance to remind ourselves what's in here and what we're hoping to do in terms of achieve in each month of the year. From one angle, I mean, I guess this is, perhaps in our next sort of workshop, we can sort of bring this document in and see how it aligns with our work planning plan. The thing that is jumping out to me is the listening sessions. And we'll probably have to make a change there because obviously we're not going to have one in January. But it's a good reminder that that's what we had intended to do, to start each year with a couple listening sessions and then have two more, it looks like, that are sort of pre-budget season in August and September.
I think the intent, if I remember, and Mike, correct me, when this was suggested, we were gonna try and do a listening session every quarter and in different places, but it hasn't been as easy to do that.
Yeah.
We've, tried two different places, two different towns, but it's pretty hard to then have some of those, but we certainly can revisit this during our work session. Tim?
Yeah, I sort of had a thought around that too, that I think it is important to go out to each individual village, if you will, and kind of connect and make that happen. But I also was reflecting on the idea of like topics, the hot topics that evolve in a community that are, benefit by discussion. Like obviously we've talked a lot about the transfer station recycling thing and like certain topics that evolve in the community that there's just a real value to having like a more deep dynamic discussion, maybe perhaps with a facilitator or whatever that would look like. And that was I was almost more passionate about that and identifying those topics and having that enriched good discussion as much as the geography of the villages and going there and listening kind of thing. So I just think that would be a good way to maybe restructure this, where you're touching not only on the, getting out to those villages, but also honing in on topics that are important and key to the community kind of thing.
Mike, okay.
On Saturday night, I went to a community gathering at the West Hartford Library. And they asked that the board go out there sometime and have a listening session there. So they often feel like there's a forgotten
Right.
village. So I would encourage you, and I won't be on the board, but I encourage you to keep up the listening sessions and get out there
Right.
to the various villages.
Right, and I remember talking with the librarian at Hartford Library, and their concern was that they have a place to meet, but they don't have the accessibility for disabilities. So, you know, I think that's dependent a lot on each village, what they can, where they can.
So let me ask the group, what about the notion of tabling this pending further discussion, but with a notion that Lana and I will continue to bring before you boards and commissions whose turn it is under this calendar, as we have been doing. How about that?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm fine with tabling it. I just have a few things I want to throw out for consideration. Very small, 2 small items, I think. In June, I'm wondering if we can't put a placeholder in there for set fee structures. Is if we, I can't remember exactly when we did that last year. It's
We
nice
did
to
it
sort
late
of-
in June for the new fiscal year, but you're right. June is the time, and maybe a little bit earlier in June, so we don't find ourselves up against the wall.
It's nice to, for those things that are fixed, to have them in here, and it's a little tickler to us, because I think maybe a month ahead, we ought to be opening up the floor, so to speak, to any discussions around changing them, so that then staff has a chance to evaluate thoughts that the board has, so that they're not sort of put on the spot and we just have to sort of, you know, default to what's presented, right? So we want a little bit of a pre-planning process there. And the second one is, I'm not sure if you brought this up, Madam Chair, and if you didn't, my apologies, but I thought you were wanting to move the, in October, there's issue town manager eval. I thought you were wanting to move that earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And I made a note here that, you know, maybe we just shift it back one, you don't want to move it like 3 months all in one year, but maybe over the course of a couple of years, if you wanted it to be midsummer, move it one month
Right.
each year for 2 or 3 years.
We were already in budget season. It took a while to get it back, and I just think that that's does disservice to the evaluation.
Sure.
So you're suggesting maybe September for the next cycle, if you will?
Right. And then put a note somewhere, we repeat that again next year, and then we've got it back to August at least.
We're gonna get you all the way back to January.
January's chock full. But very
We're just gonna
cold.
keep pushing it back.
You guys are patient. It'll take you a decade, but I'll be there.
So.
Is there your 12th anniversary? We'll be back at Christmas.
We can just table it
Yes,
without a motion?
yeah, but I do take these notes and I appreciate them. And Lana and I will continue to bring the committees forward as we have under this plan
Oh, great.
in the meantime.
Okay, then the next one is to review and approve select board 2026 meeting schedule.
Yes, sort of a companion piece, but this kind of would allow us to post regular meeting dates and times for the public, sometimes who still questions, hey, I haven't seen this list for the new year. Are the meetings still every other Tuesday? Something to post online and not the website, to give people an idea of what our meeting schedule is for the next year.
And we don't necessarily try and attempt to put the budget component in there because it's a more convoluted.
No, it's just as a planning tool for the public to know when the meetings are.
Yeah.
It would be awfully difficult for us to commit to times on the budget cycle.
Okay. So.
Do you require a motion to adopt this calendar?
We probably should.
Yeah.
Yep. You want to make it?
I'm gonna give it a shot.
All
I don't
right,
have any
go ahead.
formal language, but-
That's
Madam Chair,
pretty easy.
Madam Chair, I propose that we adopt the meeting schedule for the Hartford Select Board for the next cycle, ranging from January 6, 2026 to 12/22/20, would that be 2026 is what, right?
Yes.
Okay. So.
You want to?
Do you want to give it another shot?
No, that works beautifully.
Is there a second?
That was a terrible motion. I concur.
Is there a second? There was, Mike gave a second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's 6-0. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to turn this over to Eric. Consider content and schedule for Select Board's annual work planning strategic planning workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, so I polled the board for some dates of availability. In this memo, I wrote that the workshop is scheduled for February 21st. I think maybe there were some negotiations going on. Ashley was hoping to get it moved to the 22nd. So I'm not sure where we stand on that. I will stay tuned. It makes no difference to me, but I think Mike was the only one that responded to the poll and couldn't do the 22nd. So you guys,
I think I can. I'll
Okay.
confirm whether we can.
Okay, so we're either at the 21st or the 22nd.
Now, wasn't it Ashley who said she couldn't do the 21st?
Right.
She preferred not to do the 21st was
Okay.
what she had written to me in email.
Yeah.
So sure. And so the idea with this workshop is to do a bit of a repeat of what we did last year with annual work planning. Maybe templatize it a little bit differently this year. And I'm planning on putting together a bit of a template, John, to propose to you and solicit some feedback. But if we can do everything in spreadsheets, I think it's going to just save some of the legwork up front. But with the annual work planning, the idea is to develop a picture of what's on the board's plate. And this helps us with not only just sort of figuring out where we're heading during the course of the year, but also gives us an opportunity if there are documents that we need to digest beforehand, we make the time to do so. For example, if something is coming up 2 months from now with the transfer station, it would behoove someone to go read the feasibility study that's been done on that, for example. The second part of it is to establish a sense of what capacity is remaining for the board. Once we sort of figure out what's on our plate, we have a general sense of, in a meeting, how much work we can take on and how much extra capacity we might have during the course of a year. And then that second part of the workshop would be focused on strategic planning. Tonight's purpose is the purpose of this agenda item is just to figure out where we want to go with that strategic planning. And in the memo, I suggested 2 alternatives. There are many, many more alternatives that could be considered here. But I think it's up to the board to decide what we want to do with that balance of that time. And I would suggest that if we're proficient with the annual work planning portion of it, that we've got something on the order of 4 hours, perhaps, to focus on strategic planning. And we should hopefully leave tonight with an expectation of what we're doing, and then also be able to convey that to whoever's going to facilitate the workshop so that they understand what our goals and objectives are for that bulk of the time. So with that, I'll turn it over and try to answer any questions that may arise.
Questions from the board for Eric? For planning purposes. Tim?
More of a comment. Like I've done a lot of these sort of strategic planning retreat modes, and some of them are wonderful, some of them are painful. And I just sort of feel like, to the extent we can develop a little more of a work plan, because sometimes, like, I was looking at the strategic vision document that the town of Hartford has. And I was kind of like, I have to say, like, a little bit overwhelmed by how, I'm not going to say how mushy it was, but just how broad it was. And I'm not going to say vague, because people worked hard on that, and I appreciate that. But the idea for me would be more, there's 2 perhaps outcomes or objectives. One would be, a little bit more of okay, what's the next year look like? What are some of the work plan or key challenges over the next year? And then the second thing is a little more of a clear document around guidelines. When issues come up, it's a little bit of a legacy thing, because obviously, all of us sitting here tonight might not be here, 5 years from now or whatever. But it would be a little more of like a template or a guiding document that allows the town to say, well, we have these objectives of like a vibrant, healthy community with these sort of characteristics. And so as things come up in front of the town, you're able to say, all right, those fit within the parameters of what we believe in or we think is appropriate, and then we can kind of move forward. So I think, again, I appreciate these, retreats and kind of visioning sessions, but I think it would be really productive to try and come up with a little bit of a better work plan for like the next year. Okay, these are the things that we really want to hone in on. Like, obviously, we have a new public works director, and I'm very excited about the capital plan, for example, to really get like, okay, what are some of the daunting things ahead of us, that we know we're going to have to write checks for. So that's all, just maybe a little more of a concrete, clear thing and a little less abstract concept mode,
May I respond? Yeah, the strategic vision document, I take the first page of that to be more guiding principles, and the second page are the strategic priorities. One of the alternatives that I suggested in the memo was once we're done annual work planning, we've sort of figured out what's on the plate currently. We're sort of going through that second page to peel off those things that we consider to be priorities currently. And there are some things on there that we should definitely, that we've spoken about in the past year, but really haven't made a lot of progress on, namely the transfer station, but I would broaden the scope of that to be just solid waste in general. And so I am 100% on board with you in terms of like, how do we, in the planning world that I come from, there's granularity, right? It starts off with pretty non-granular, pretty broad, pretty high level, and goes all the way down to the execution level, where we know what tasks we're carrying out. And in between there are different levels. And I think that should be part of our objective, is to lay out some of those, as a board, identify the strategic priorities that we think we can undertake in a given year, and then start doing work on them. And that work might include, and the first step might be, we need to have a listening session for this. And so how does that slot into the calendar of events that we looked at, right? And then we just start doing project planning on these given priorities. As far as the guiding principles kind of idea, that almost sounds like a rubric in a way of like, I establish a rubric, and that tells me whether or not to undertake a given project or whatever, but I may not be fully understanding what you're after there. I guess that's one area that I've been struggling with. I hesitate to, if the board gets too broad, it can be, we can just spin our wheels, and it feels like at some point you just go, okay, well, we know we need to deal with solid waste. We got stuff to do on that. We know that there's a need for a new public safety building, and there's some legwork that has to happen before that. Like, that's stuff we can start working on. And it's almost like, if you imagine, like, what do we want? What are the decisions we need to be making during budget season? And you just back schedule and go, okay, what do I need as a prerequisite to make those decisions? And that, in a way, defines some of the things that we have to answer. And then from there, we can flesh out project plans and whatever. So my instinct is to focus in on priorities of the things that we know they're right on our plate. They're just like, we got to deal with them, and they fit into a broader vision. But if we go off and start doing broader visioning things, I think we may miss an opportunity to sort of dig in on specific projects. That's just how I react.
I wonder if would-be facilitators might have ideas on how to develop an agenda that allows for broad discussion, but doesn't let us meander too far in the world of the ether, and focuses on practical steps to be taken by a board. I'm sure that other towns have held select board work plans to develop strategic plans for the future. I'm sure that's not an alien concept to the people we've dealt with, whether it's a private firm or whether it's VLCT or some other facilitator. So maybe we could reach out to one or more of those sources and see if they might be able to help develop an agenda.
Right. John, I'd like to ask, did you get any recommendations for facilitators at the town managers meeting?
No, I did not. I'm sorry to say.
No, that's okay.
But that's an easy email thread I can generate. Yeah.
This brings up a question I have, John. I mean, I know that we reach out for, like this talk about facilitators. Is this considered like an RFP?
Well, I think the board has the right and the authority and the ability and the latitude to reach out to a facilitator that they have heard good things about and engage them.
Okay.
If you feel you want to follow, strictly speaking, the purchasing policy, we could set up an RFP, but that seems like a cumbersome,
Okay.
certainly a time-consuming process.
Right. Well, I was just wondering.
Isn't the policy only approved to amounts over?
Yes, over $10,000.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that would be implicated, but I mean, you can go through that process to be careful and cautious and dotting Ts and crossing Is. But I think it could be very time consuming and we want to move relatively quickly, it sounds like.
I just
Yep.
a thought.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay,
Thank you, Eric.
yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that some general sense that you would like the town manager to explore the possible facilitators out there who are recommending VLCT themselves to give us an idea of whether they can help us put together a program? Is that
That'd be great.
something you all like me to do?
I've been meaning to reach out and I've been procrastinating, but I think it's a great idea. I just hesitate to add more things to your plate.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to have a discussion with you about, like, would you prefer I start at some point when we get down to the transfer of money and so on, you obviously have to take over.
Sure.
But I could start some initial conversations.
You have my
depending on-
blessing, because it is a pretty full plate, no question about it.
Right, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to add to that in the case that the board could do some of its own legwork.
Yeah. So I mean, let me do this. I can at least send out an email to my colleagues for ideas, which I can forward to you. And then you already have a contact, presumably with Kathleen Ramsey, for example. I think that's a logical contact at VLCT. And maybe that gives you enough to work with for the time being.
Yeah, that sounds great to me, and I don't want to. I do want to take things off your plate when I can.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so commission reports, I'm gonna start with you, Tim.
I have nothing to report.
Mike?
Nothing.
No commission reports.
Miranda? No report. Sure.
Just that the Conservation Commission had a special meeting in, I think it was the 12th. I don't have my notes with me. To submit a letter to the Department of Environmental Conservation with respect to Executive Order 0625, which deals with both changes to the wetland buffers for development in growth areas and changes to the residential and commercial energy codes, building codes. So obviously they didn't deal with the energy and building codes, but they did make several recommendations that the state sort of go slow, so to speak, with any plans to reduce wetland buffers. And I'll make that letter. I'll get a hold of that letter or make sure that the commission posts it on their website, because at least one board member has asked for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, excuse me, consent agenda.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mike.
I move that the select board approve payroll ending 1/17/26, approve AP manifest 1/16/26 and 1/22/26, approve meeting minutes of 1/6/26, future meetings approved on 2/3/26 and 2/17/26.
Is there a second? Second by Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
6-0. Okay, we will be going into executive session. Is someone want to make the motion? Tim, you want to give it a try?
I'm gonna try it, give it another shot, but I have a guideline here. This is good. Madam Chair, we would like to move into an executive session in order to allow for a discussion of a personnel matter. I move to find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place this body and or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A1. Move to discuss personnel matters pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A3.
All right, is there a second?
Second that.
A second by Eric. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, this shouldn't take too long. Okay.
Yeah, I need a motion.
Yeah. We are back from executive session.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I
Ashley.
move that we close executive session at 8:39 PM.
Is there a second? Okay. A second by Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are 5 people here. No, 6 people here. Okay.
I
And
made a note that Ashley appeared to join the executive session around 8:12, give or
yes,
take.
that's,
Yes, thank
I was
you.
gonna tell you that as well. And I say we didn't.
And no action. was
Yes,
taken.
no action was taken. No action is required.
All right. Thank you.
May
Is
I-
there a motion?
may I make a motion that we end this meeting?
Adjourn.
Adjourn, thank you. See?
Second.
Seconded.
There is a second by Ashley. All in favor, say aye.
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 Last one.